Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, and I am joined by Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas. Jim is our big money man, and Ann is our beautiful nutritionist and personal trainer. And of course, we have the infamous and very famous Dr. Lee Osler from Washington State, dentist extraordinaire and author of now 4 books on redox. So what we're going to be talking about is the science of redox signaling. So we have a very special guest on tonight, Dr. Aaron Kaufman, who has an incredible fund of knowledge surrounding this science. He's one of the medical board members, along with Dr. Lee and myself. And he is going to talk about how he was introduced to redox signaling molecules and how he uses it in his practice. But tonight we have an incredible guest, Trish Schwenkler, who is, she's a mentor to all of us. She has helped tens of thousands of people all over the world learn about this incredible gift, this breakthrough for health sciences, and shared it all over the world. She's the #1 income earner in the entire company just because of her passion and belief in what this gift has for I can't talk tonight. What this can do for people. So Trish, come on and give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and introduce Dr. Aaron Kaufman for us. Thanks.
Hello, ASEA family. Hello, if you are a guest here tonight. We'd like to thank you very much for taking some of your valuable time on a Friday evening to join us. And you are going to have an amazing treat tonight on this edition of the ASEA 5. And big thanks to Jim and Ann Glenn, Dr. Maureen Hayes, and Dr. Lee Osler for organizing this amazing webinar every single week. So let me get right to it. I would like to introduce our special guest speaker tonight, Dr. Aaron Kaufman. He is an osteopathic physician, board certified in osteopathic medicine. Dr. Kaufman has worked in integrative family medicine for over 35 years in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he is the owner of the Southwest Integrative Health Center in Albuquerque. Dr. Kaufman's practice involves a blend of the most effective therapies from mainstream and alternative practice. He donates his time to be a part of the esteemed ASEA Medical Professionals Board. He helps people all around the world understand redox. He is a true servant leader, a person who truly loves humanity, loves people, and really performs service for the entire ASEA family. We love and appreciate him so much. Of course, he has been using redox in his practice for over 10 years. He has witnessed countless miracles. Some of his patients, where nothing else could help them, redox changed their life. So he's an amazing human being. He's also an athlete, which you're going to hear about tonight. In addition to that, Dr. Aaron Kaufman is an ASEA Triple Diamond executive. And what that means is that he has helped a lot of people regain their health. A lot of people understand the power of the ASEA opportunity. And so with no more ado, I'd like to welcome a person that I am honored and privileged to call my dear friend, Dr. Aaron Kaufman. Take it away.
Thank you, Trish.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I've never had an introduction like that before, Trish. Thank you.
I've never seen you in
humbling.
that coat either. Your white coat.
Humbling, yeah.
Awesome.
So where do we start?
Why don't you go back to the beginning? You know, we love to hear about how medical professionals, how they're approached and what their initial reaction is to it and what you had to do to kind of get over the hurdle of having something brought to you that maybe you had never heard of before. What did you look at to validate the science?
Sure. Well, it was about, Maureen, 13 years ago, 12, it's coming up on 11 years, just like you, that I've been using ASEA. So it was about 2 years where I, just as you said, hadn't heard of it. And so I was researching, and I had an aversion to network marketing, which I quit, I got disabused of, I had to let go of because of experiences in the 80s and 90s that were very negative, a lot of hype and misrepresentation, which gives our profession a bad name and is not uncommon. So my initial reaction when it was presented to me was absolutely not, and I, for 15 years, it said no to network marketing. And when my friend, Dr. Chris Edmonds, introduced this to me, again, as you noted, I'd never heard of redox cell signaling molecules because it was a relatively new science. When you and I, well, I'm older than you, but when I was in medical school, literally 40 years ago, and we were studying biochemistry and studying energy production inside the mitochondria, the little energy factories in every cell, the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, there were these negative and positive ions that spun off. We didn't think anything about them. If anything, they were waste products. Well, 1998 comes along, and these three Italian PhD researchers win the Nobel Prize for showing that demonstrating the first signaling molecule, which was nitric oxide. And subsequently, we come to understand that these things that we thought were waste products 40 years ago are not only not waste products, but are foundational to life. In other words, you guys don't hear me speaking. You don't think a thought. You don't digest food. You don't you take a breath. Your heart doesn't beat. This is not signal. They're turned on and turned off by these signaling molecules. And so I had never heard of this before. Again, relatively new science. Old as, multicellular life in its existence, but the science was new, 1998. So I go to PubMed.gov, and that's the US government website for all the peer-reviewed medical research that comes out in the world. And at the time, again, this is probably ballpark of 2011, 2012, I think there was 6,000 articles had accumulated that referenced redox signaling. And so I started reading abstracts to kind of understand what this was. Again, I'd never heard of it before. And, interestingly, to this day, most people haven't heard of it. It's starting to be recognized, acknowledged a bit, but most people, medical scientists, whoever, doctors, dentists, and so forth, have not heard of redox signaling. So that's why we go to such great lengths to talk about this and, help people understand. But at the time, I didn't know. So I started reading abstracts about how these figured into disease, pathophysiology, and so forth. And I got a sense of what it was. And then Dr. Edmonds started sharing with me some of the independent research funded by ASEA, which interestingly was mostly athletic, because our founder, Vertus Norton's son-in-law, was a high-performance cyclist. And he was one of the early people who started drinking this and started noticing he was tearing it up on his rides. I think he would ride up in the mountains and so forth. And so they funded research with Dr. David Neiman, who's a very, very prominent PhD exercise physiologist. And they did studies with cyclists, looking at their time to reach VO2 max, which basically means how long it takes them to hit the wall, to run out of oxygen because they're pushing themselves so hard, which just coincidentally, not divine orchestration, was what I was doing. I've been a runner for 46 years. And I live at 7,000 feet above Albuquerque on the edge of the Cibola National Forest. So I run out the door at 7,000 feet up to 8,000 feet, and there's 8 places where I'm, and I can't get enough oxygen. I've hit the ventilatory threshold. So this study is like spot on. And, then they did endurance studies with mice, and they go 29% further before they're exhausted. And they did metabolic studies that showed these huge shifts in the precursors and intermediaries to that. Remember what I was talking about, the energy production cycle, the Krebs cycle. So it basically was enhancing our ability to produce and utilize energy. And so I started drinking it after almost 2 years of research. And within a month, totally inappropriately, drinking it just on the days I would run, I noticed within the first month, I'm powering up the mountain harder and faster. Within 3 months, by then I'd started to drink it every day, I think 4 ounces a day. And within 3 months, it was a month before I turned 60, I set new personal best times for those trails that I'd been running at that time, 16 years, by 20%, which is pretty amazing. 16 years of running, and I surpassed my best times by 20%. So that got my attention, and I started using it regularly. And then I started to notice, I think it was about 4 months in, I started sleeping like I hadn't slept in, I don't know, maybe 20 years at that time. And, you know, we noticed one of the things that almost everybody experiences is better sleep. My sister started sleeping better in 2 months. We had a veterinary researcher who started sleeping better in 2 days. So, you know, just for reference, as we continue to talk, everybody's experience is very, very individual. 4 months in, my shoulders stopped hurting. I don't know, somewhere under a year, my hips stopped hurting. And at 1 year, my low back stopped hurting. And again, something to reference for people listening is it's very individual again. And as you continue to drink these molecules to youthen your cells, to make them younger, act like they're younger, you notice more and more and more progressively over time. You know, if we polled everybody here, I would bet, you know, you said that somewhere in the ballpark of 3, 4, 5 years, you kept noticing new stuff. So when people go, okay, I'm going to try a bottle or try a case, or, you know, even when we tell people you need to use it for 3 or 4 months just to begin to see what it'll do, realize as you keep drinking it, as you keep turning the clock back on your cells and whatever might be going on in our cells and throughout our body, we will progressively and continually to notice new improvements.
Hey,
So
Aaron.
that was kind of the story.
Okay,
It's awesome.
you said it's very individualized. Could you please share a little bit about that? Because a lot of people say, "Well, maybe it won't work on me." You know, maybe it'll work on you, Dr. Kaufman, but you know, I'm different. You know, things react different to me. Could you touch on that real quick?
Certainly. So, you know, I don't use this line anymore. People would say, well, how does it work in this, that, or the other condition? And, you know, make silly statements like that. Well, they're not silly. They just don't understand. And you know, a lot of people have been burned. You know, there's so much hype. What I was talking about earlier, hype and misrepresentation. They don't believe that something can do what these products do. So, you know, the bottom line, and the line I don't use anymore, is anything that involves cells is going to work better. So, you know, if they've got cells, they're going to work better. And whether they notice it short-term, long-term, it's going to turn on their cells. It's going to cause their cells to work more efficiently, to cause increased communication throughout the body and their cells, within the cells and between cells.
Why don't you use that anymore? I like that.
Whatever. You know,
Yeah.
time goes on, and you know, we learn new things, and things
Sure.
supersede older things.
It gets more and more complicated, but I do think that we keep it simple. You know, when people want to know what this is, you know, I say it's a secret communication or secret language of the cells, but really what we're doing is we're energizing those cells so they do work better. And what I think is really important, because there's a lot of great products out there, a lot of great supplements out there, but if you don't have your redox in the right place, if you don't have the right balance, or you have a deficiency, then you're not going to get the full benefits from all the other things you're doing. And I think that's why, you know, you're still practicing, but, you know, I think that's why so often we see people who have a clean diet, they exercise, they have good sleep hygiene, they do all the right things, and they're still suffering. They get on the product and it's like somebody flipped a switch, because what they were missing was the redox component to it.
Absolutely.
So Yeah, I think that's
So-
really fascinating.
That,
Hey,
that's
real
an
quick.
important concept, Maureen. It's like, I remember we had this coach many, many years ago who it took him like 6 months to really start to understand what this was. And somebody had given him this product that was some sort of nutritional powder or, protein powder. I don't know what it was. And when he finally got it, he goes, "You guys need to tell everybody." He held up this jar of this powder and he says that your stuff makes their goo work better. So it's a very, very valid concept for people to understand that it doesn't matter whether they're using patches or homeopathy or taking supplements or whatever. It can be the greatest new whatever in the world. You turn on your cells, it's going to make whatever you're doing work better. It's going to help you, if it's a medication, it's going to make your cells act like they were younger. And how would your cells perform if they were, I don't know, 20 years younger, 40 years younger?
Okay, so Lee, can you come on real quick? And did we already do that? And I just missed
The
it.
disclaimer? No. I
Disclaimer.
skipped
And
it.
then Lee, if you don't mind, then I want to hear Dr. Kaufman share as well. What exactly? I know we got some new people watching tonight. We invited quite a few. Can you please, Lee, and then Dr. Aaron, can you explain how you explain simply what the heck this is? Lee?
Well, hello, everybody.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, right. This is going to take a couple hours
KISS.
to tell you exactly.
Maybe we should just let Trish do it.
You're right. That's what I was thinking earlier. Like,
She obviously doesn't.
Not when there are two doctors on the line. No way.
We'll have her do
One
the cleanup
dentist.
today.
Three, yeah, 2 doctors and a dentist. But we'd
That's
like to
it.
hear how you do them, Trish.
3 when you count a dentist, yeah.
So
They did ask me to be on the medical board, but I rejected it. So anyway,
Smart.
Well,
go ahead, Lee.
Oh, man.
the company that we're representing is called ASEA, and we are globally represented throughout the world. And we've got many different countries that have, their own regulatory issues. But basically, through them all, we say that the supplement that we are offering to the world does not cure, treat, diagnose anything. What we are is a cellular health company, and we distribute it through a network marketing business model, which we can describe later. But that's the disclaimer. And when we say that this doesn't fix or cure anything, it's because what this does is puts the cells in a position where your cells do the healing. You're healing or repairing, renewing, rejuvenating, functioning better from within. I call it the inner doctor. As Aaron was discussing, I'll just kind of give a quick summary of it all. The basic conundrum or problem that the body has is in how it responds to environmental stress or physiological stress, what's going on inside the cell. And that stress is defined as oxidative stress or oxidation, which is just the loss of electrons. Redox, the name redox is reduction, oxidation. It's a contraction. And so we're just talking about the movement of electrons across, say, a polar gradient. It's moving to some place where it can be more stable, to a molecule where it can be more stable. And again, without going too deep, the body has found a way, and it's been designed this way, to be able to sense or detect the state of affairs in the cell as it relates to its oxidative state. And rather than living in that state, which leads to inflammation and disease, that there is a mechanism, a circuit that will activate when properly switched on, that will restore the cell to health and function. And we call that the redox regulatory circuit. And sometimes you'll hear them referred to as pathway genes. And this is about how you tell the genes to do a specific job, which is to make substances like glutathione and to activate cell repair, DNA repair, mitochondrial repair mechanisms. And so that's really what we're doing. And it's really the same pathways that everything in a healthy lifestyle also activate. And so I endorse what both Maureen and Aaron talked about, in the sense that this is this is a great foundational, collaboration with things you should already be doing in your lifestyle, which is exercise and eating right and fasting and stress reduction and good sleep. This just augments or accelerates, makes better all of those things that are associated with lifestyle. I'd like to kick it to Trish and have Trish real quick and just say, balance that out with what a non-medical person would describe this as.
Okay, so I live in Boise, Idaho. I have a high school education, but I've had health challenges in my lifetime. And when I found ASEA, I was looking for something extraordinary, something miraculous. And so essentially, our bodies are made of 75 trillion cells. ASEA makes every one of those cells work better. So it doesn't matter whether something's bothering you in your lung or your foot or your back or your eyes or inside of your body, your lungs, they're all made of cells. So when ASEA makes those 75 trillion cells work better, guess what? You're going to feel better. You're going to function better. Probably your numbers are probably going to change. Most people's do over time. So pretty simple, pretty amazing. When I found ASEA, I was in my mid 50s. And at that time, I wasn't dealing with a lot of health issues, but I was middle-aged, right? And so I took ASEA and I wasn't really expecting anything to happen. And this doesn't happen for everyone, but the first time that I drank the little cup of ASEA, I felt like all the stress drained out of my body. And at that instant, I knew that this was real. So I always tell people, you know what? You can listen to all these explanations, and I highly respect Dr. Lee Osler, Dr. Erin Kaufman, and Dr. Maureen Hayes. And at the same time, you know what? Your body will tell you what's going on. And for most people, not everybody, but when you use the gel 3 times in 5 minutes, if you have any discomfort or limited range of motion in your body, you're going to see and feel a difference. And for not everyone, but a lot of people, when if you're tuned into your body, you may even feel a difference when you take your first glass of ASEA. That's probably like 10% of people actually. But, and I always tell people, you know what, if you don't believe in redox molecules, okay, don't sue me. I'm not telling you to cut your finger, but if you do, if you cut your finger or you burn yourself, you know what? Just put some Redox gel or spray some Redox molecules on the area where you injured yourself. You will feel the discomfort go away very, very quickly. If you're having some type of bleeding on your finger or something, if you put it in a little, let's say, shot glass of ASEA, you'll see the blood start to coagulate. You'll see healing happen in a fraction of the time that it normally takes. Great for sunburns. You can spray it in your eyes, feels really great. You can spray it in any orifice of your body where you want more comfort. So anyway, use it and just watch and feel your 75 trillion cells function better and make you feel better.
Trish, if you don't mind my saying, I was just doing the math, and you look fantastic. You know, I think if anybody looked at you, they wouldn't think that you were 50 years old. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
We have to keep our age a secret, right? We're ageless, timeless.
We are, and we're aging backwards. You look.
And we're living longer, younger with redox signaling molecules. And so great.
Okay.
We're using.
Now, so look, I'm an ex-stockbroker. I always have to look at what could go wrong. And this just, when I first heard about it, and if I wouldn't have seen my best friend's kid remarkably get better, this sounds crazy. This sounds like it's right, Maureen? I see you shaking your head. And I want to hear your story real quick, and then Dr. Kaufman. But if it sounds too good to be true, it can't be true. But yet, we're saying, and Dr. Kaufman, you said, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Osler as well, and Maureen, it always works. That sounds impossible. Could you guys please address why does it always work, please? Maureen?
You know, it can't not work, right? It
That
does.
sounds nuts.
Well, I love a couple of different analogies because it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around it. And I know when we first got in and we didn't have some of the studies, we have many more studies now than we did, 11 years ago. But somebody said it's kind of like your electricity in your house. You have an outlet, and it doesn't matter if you plug in a refrigerator or a hair dryer, they're going to work. And that's basically what we're doing. We're imparting energy to those cells. When they take our product, it's made from salt water, which is what I think a lot of us had a hard time getting over, is that, you've got salt, a saline solution, and we understand saline, our bodies are mostly saline, but it's like, okay, that's a pretty common thing. How is this, where's the magic? Well, the magic is that they use an electrolysis process that breaks all those bonds apart. It infuses energy into these molecules that don't release that energy until you ingest it. And then they're absorbed very quickly. They're teeny tiny, high energy, fleeting molecules that go into your cells and start to turn things on. So it's absolutely amazing. So it works. It does what it does. It can't not do what it does. How you feel that is a personal thing because it's indirect. We have some products that are direct. We know what they do. We can target the effect of them, but not with the Redox. Your body does with it what it's going to do. But I love another analogy that I think it might have been Alan Noble who used it, who said it's kind of like batteries in your flashlight. As we get older and those batteries have been used for a long time, they start to dim, and your lights are getting lower. They're still working, but it's dim. And that's how a lot of people view aging, right? I mean, we still, our bodies are still working, but they're not working as efficiently as they did when we were younger. So if you can replace those batteries and then that light is bright again, or your cells are bright again and energetic, then everything works better. But, it's amazing. Like Dr. Kaufman was saying, my family's been on this product for 11 years now, and we're still experiencing things that maybe we didn't experience early on. And Trish, unlike you, but of course you're incredibly athletic and very health oriented, even though I'm a doctor, I shouldn't be ratting myself out. It was 6 weeks before I noticed anything. I was trying to get my money back. Yeah. And Latham, my sponsor, was like, you're past your 30 days, keep drinking. And I was not amused, but thank God I did, because, our blessing was about 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
And now you can wrench it away from us.
Yeah. With drinking the molecules, we always ask people to make at least a 90-day commitment. Some lucky people like me will feel something right away. Some people feel it with the first bottle, but you really need to give it a good chance by using it for at least 90 days. And we find the best results with at least 8 ounces per day, right, Dr. Kaufman, which is what the recent testing has shown. I don't know if Jim wants you to talk a little bit about the testing or not. I won't try to host the webinar.
It's a great study.
Go ahead.
Right. But you're right with the drink, but the magic is also now in the gel, like with what you said. You do that thing 3 times in 5 minutes, and 90% of the people, that's crazy. But my mind always goes, yeah, but what about the 10%ers? And it's working, they just can't feel it. So, Aaron, why does this stuff always have to work? I mean, I look at the bottle, it says it's a dietary supplement. And Maureen was saying it's made out of salt water. And too many people, by the way, also take it to their doctor and go, hey, doctor, should I take this? Now, I didn't do that. I said, I went to my doctor, said, I'm taking this.
He fired
Watch
him.
my meds. But what do you say to those people? It's a dietary supplement made from salt water, doc. Why should I take it? You're muted. You're muted. You're like Maureen.
You ask about 4 different questions there, so
I know. Just pick the one you like.
Yeah, right. I'll just make it up as I go. What Maureen and Trish were talking about, and I was thinking about the historical changes in the communication as we mature, as the research matures. I remember early on, my line, or a lot of our line to people, was the research shows that this works for everybody. You know, we were primarily talking about the athletes who they had them drink, I believe, 4 ounces, and then 15 minutes later drew their blood and saw these huge metabolic shifts. And so that was incontrovertible, you know, that it works for everybody. And then we started doing like the 3 and 5 and the Tyndall swipe, and people would have results like in a minute or so, you know, with the gel. And we would talk about tiny molecules that were 2 and 3 and 4 atoms in size. And so they're instantly into your body, into the blood flow, into the brain, and throughout your body. And that's why we would notice it so quickly. And, you know, so that was the confirmation. Yeah, if you got, and, you know, as the science matures and we know more and more and more about what it is back to that line that I used to use, you know, does the condition you're talking about involve a cell? This is proven to turn on cells, cellular efficiency. So, an analogy or a comparison I like to use is you think about, you know, diseases generally, and who gets a lot of the diseases? Us as we age. Who gets many, many, many fewer, you know, not that they don't have health issues and so forth, is children, us when we're young. Who has the most redox signaling molecules, who has the least? And so it's sort of, you know, secondhand proof that, yes, this is what's going on. So, you know, there's a lot of things you can tell people. I like what Maureen and Trish were both saying. I think bottom line, what Trish said is the bottom line. You know, if somebody has an experience, then the science is like, oh, okay, that's nice. You know, and so that's why the gel is so exciting, because it works so quickly. And yeah, you know, get people to drink it for 30 days, 90 days. I explained to them it's going to continue to know, they're going to continue those improvements for probably 5 years.
Now, Aaron, a lot of people will look that it's made from salt water, and they kind of get confused that if they have any kind of a salt issue, that they can't drink this. Could you address that real quick?
Certainly. And it ties into your question about talking to your physician.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
A lot of times when people take it to their physician, and for whatever, they have a heart condition, they have a kidney condition, and they're on a salt or sodium restricted diet. It typically, the standard one when they do have that restriction is called 2-gram sodium. 2 grams is 2,000 milligrams. And we looked at early on, I believe, a 4-ounce serving, if I'm not wrong about this, you guys can correct me, is 123 milligrams of sodium, which is, we used to say, is equivalent to a medium-sized carrot or slice of whole wheat bread. And we were on a Zoom recently with the Australians, and people were talking about this stuff is not the issue, you know, but the physician looks and goes, oh, salt and water, sodium chloride and water. No, you can't drink this because you've got this condition. And what these people in this Zoom were talking about is, cut the ketchup out. It's full of salt. Look at all the food, the packaged food that everybody in the Western world eats that's full of sodium, much, much more than this. And even if you were concerned about this tiny amount of sodium, stop eating the ketchup, stop eating the food additives, and now you can drink this. But when they take it to their physician, they're not thinking along those lines. They're, you know, little box, they're going, okay, right, you know, 2 grams sodium or whatever, you can't drink it. The corollary to that, the other piece of that, we were just talking on a Zoom 2 nights ago. And this woman from Singapore was, you know, when they take it to the doctor says absolutely not. And you run into this thing, you know, I like to say they've got a bucket over their heads. but they don't know. And the big fault I have, and I'm going to lose some friends here probably, is mainstream medicine. There's this tendency for doctors to be arrogant. And to me, if a patient comes to me and they've got something that, just doesn't get better or whatever, all the standard therapies aren't working, and they come in and say, I'm doing this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden they don't have that condition anymore. And the doctor says, what are you doing? And they say, I'm drinking this stuff. To me, if I'm their doctor, I'm going to go, wow, I need to know about that. To me, that's being a good medical scientist. You're empirically going, this works, I need to know about it. You hear it universally, they go, okay, somebody who is supposed to be dead, for instance, and they go, yeah, just keep doing that. To me, that's reprehensible. But, it's hard to convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced, and somebody who doesn't have time to look at the data and so forth. So you do your best,
You bring up a really good point.
Go ahead.
Forgive me for interrupting. I like that because, I was one of those arrogant doctors. The first time somebody brought it to me, can you imagine? It's hard to believe. I've had a personality change with the CN, so have a number of other people.
Well,
But
we've got mood for that. It's
that's
healthy
true.
personality
That's true.
change.
What's
Yeah.
changed?
Fantastic, especially when you're having a stressful week.
Yes.
But, the first time it was brought around, somebody, we get very protective, I think, of the years and time, effort, money, everything that we put into our education and all. And so sometimes people will bring things to us in a way that is, I don't want to say disrespectful. They don't mean any disrespect, but it seems like it's disrespectful to our level of education or whatever. And I know when this was first brought to me when my mother was deathly ill, and by somebody that I knew, but she wasn't a medical professional. And I looked it up and it was salt water, and I was like, please, I call up my era of ignorance and arrogance. And I didn't look into it. I just deleted everything. And of course, my mom died a couple of months later, and it came back around. I think it was 6 months later, and my husband was having a challenge, and I was like, not that saltwater stuff again. But the person that that brought it to me was a friend of mine who I knew was an incredible business person, no science background. I like to tease and say he doesn't know what H2O stands for, but I trusted him and I took a look. Excuse me. And of course, kind of got my uppance, if you will, because it worked very well on my husband and helped him get his health back. And then I regretted, not having looked at it for my mom. But, when you talk about people, excuse me, coming in and they've had a great response to it, something has changed for them, that should get a medical professional's attention. It should. What happens a lot of times is I think that patients come in and say, I'm taking this and it helps all my cells talk and they're going to work better. And you need to look at this because you can put all of your patients on it and they'll live forever and happily ever after. And the doctors are like, wait, no, thank you. So I do think that it's the approach sometimes that people, and I'm only bringing this up because people, I'm sure you get the question, Dr. Lee, you get the question, how do I talk to my doctor about this? How do I bring this to a medical professional?
Yeah, let me weigh in real quick on that, because maybe I can pull Dr. Aaron back away from the edge of the cliff with his friends. But the idea here is that there's some innocent ignorance. Maybe there's such a thing as innocent arrogance as well. But the model that we're trained in is one of intervention. It's not one of prevention. And because if I'm trained conventionally or, with modern medicine ideology, I'm thinking intervention. And what's not being factored into that is this whole idea of what's called natural healing, which is sometimes offensive to people that make their money, writing prescriptions and doing surgeries, is that it could be possible that you might not need me if you didn't have this problem in the first place. And so the question is, we back upstream and we go, well, why did I wind up with this medical or health problem in the first place? And it generally starts many years ago, before symptoms ever came along. And really all I'm good at as a conventionally trained health practitioner, if that's all of, if I'm a hammer, then everything's a nail, is the only thing I'm looking at is interventive things. And so I think we need to cut them a little slack in that regard. But at the same time, we have this same mindset amongst a trained populace, which is expecting that when I do something, it will do something. When I take aspirin, I expect the headache to go away in 30 minutes. And if it doesn't, I throw my hands up and say, well, that didn't work. I'm going to try a different pill. And that's not what cellular healing and cellular renewal is about. It took me decades, perhaps, to get to this place. Aaron's comment earlier of the kids are doing pretty well. Well, they still get sick, but they don't have chronic degenerative diseases like the adults have that have lingered for years and years, cooking and simmering on the back burner without them even aware of it. It's like going to a stadium and looking at tens of thousands of people. They're all there. None of them are having a heart attack. But for all those that tomorrow or next week or next month might have a heart attack, you would have said, well, if I could go find them in the picture, I could point them out and say, they're sitting there in the bleachers with heart disease and they don't even know it yet.
Yeah.
And so the point is that we're trying to not intervene, we're trying to prevent, we're trying to get upstream. And that's very consistent with the biochemistry, because we want to get upstream in the pathway genes to where we're ahead of the problems even presenting at a cellular level. And that's what lifestyle is about. And I think that's the magic, if you will, of what a Redox supplement offers us, is the ability to hack or biohack or turn on or activate or rejuvenate or enhance the very pathways that if I don't do it will show up later with a symptom and now I get a pill or a surgery.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. You were talking, Kaufman, about the salt, and people, they don't educate themselves about what this is, the stabilizing molecules. The back of the bottle talks about cardiovascular. The gene study talks about it helping the cardiovascular. But they question, here's the ingredients. But they don't look at what's inside their, Big Mac or whatever else they may go grab. And they don't think about, 1,500 milligrams is the suggested salt of the American diet. And so this is just a small percentage of salt. And if you listen to like Dr. Walker, it improved his blood pressure. We know it's going to improve if you just get on it, stay on it long enough, take enough. At minimum, what the back of the bottle says is 4 ounces, but the gene study showed more improvement at 8 ounces. And, Jim started using 8 ounces from day one and saw an improvement within the first week. And he continued on it longer. And today we're very active and we drink 12 to 14 on any given day. And if we hike or ski, we'll increase the dose because we want to see better performance. So it definitely takes education and people making better choices and making trades in their diet. And certainly this is going to be the best thing to, improve anything else that you're doing for good health. Y'all were talking earlier about the gel, and I like the strength test. Jim does it much better. I like the flexibility test. I like the 3 and 5. But when I'm sitting with a lady at a coffee shop and maybe we don't want to get up and do the whole thing in front of everybody, I may just take the gel on the back of her hand. She wouldn't have Redox yet. She's brand new learning about this. Then I'll do the other hand with Redox signaling. And in a matter of minutes, we can show them, really seconds, but in a short time, they'll see the blood flow between the hand with and without. And that right there leads into the conversation of you're already seeing a little bit of signaling. So for those out there that don't know the 3 and 5 or don't want to do a strength test with especially a guy that might be bigger than you, check it out just by doing the hand test. Always take gel with you because you don't know who you're going to meet. And it's just that open door, a conversation to be able to lead about the liquid and other products that we have, which we haven't talked about, but they all our 15 products marry together to give your body the best optimal health. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
And it reminded me, you're talking about putting it on the back of the hand, that when we didn't know nothing from nothing, this was just the convention where Renew 28 was released. And we were in a breakout session with Alan Noble, and he said, how many people have the gel? They had a special, and we, bought it in the store and so forth. And he says, now rub it on your face. And like a few minutes later, he says, feel your skin. And I remember sitting there and going, my skin's soft. I don't have soft skin, and, in terms of giving people an experience, and, everybody in this organization recognizes how critical it is for people to have an experience, because then it transcends all the explanations and so forth. Just what you're talking about, putting it on one hand and not the other, and then feeling, even like you say, a minute later, 5 minutes later, it's different. That's a pretty compelling test. Yeah.
So for the health professionals who might be watching or listening to this, and actually anybody else who's concerned about dosing, the idea of a dose is a medical interventive term. It's thinking about drug model. And this isn't a drug model. This is a cellular health model. And so the technical term there for all the cellular biologists in the crowd is hormesis. And hormesis describes what works for you. It's your own sweet spot, and you have to figure it out on your own. Maybe Aaron can dumb that down even for me to understand it better. But the point is that you find through your own trial and error where you're at and what works for you. It took me 18 months to get to a point where all of my back discomfort resolved within a week after I doubled it from what I thought was enough. And I didn't even know the difference until 18 months into it, when we were all shut down and I had time to think about it, and I doubled my dose and followed Jim. I just doubled what I was taking, and all of a sudden my back discomfort is gone. And so, even me, who I thought I knew everything about this, at least in my own mind, right, discovered that for me, it was about finding my own sweet spot. And that's a hormesis principle. It's not a pharmaceutical dosage that's across the board.
I love your slide with Goldilocks on it. This one is this dose is just right. Yeah. Yeah. My general recommendations to people, they say, how much should I take? Is anybody who's over 50, I think most of us qualify. I don't know about you, Ann, but anybody who's over 50, anybody who has, quote, significant health issues, whatever that means. And anybody who's any kind of athlete or uses their body for a living needs to be drinking 8 ounces a day. And, it doesn't mean you can't notice things at a lower dose, but you're going to notice more, and you're going to notice them quicker. And just like Lee was talking about, there are tons of stories of people who 3-6 months, you were 18 months, you said, Lee,
Yep.
not noticing much, double the dose and boom. And certainly there's the consideration, if you've got something more serious going on, that hormetic spot, that Goldilocks sweet spot is going to shift. You're going to potentially, probably short term, need more to produce that cellular balance, to balance out your, cellular function and repair and regeneration and so forth. I want to give a little plug real quick.
Okay.
Way back, Lee was talking, and I just want to put in a plug for his first 2 books, Health Matters and Redox Matters and Healthy Matters, where he coined the term Redox lifestyle. And, the previous convention, I gave this, oh my gosh, deep dive presentation on redox homeostasis within the cell. And most of it a huge percentage of it came from his manuscripts before he'd even published them. And it hit me that, there's a lot of things you can do to enhance your body's ability to have balance of and replenishment and appropriate levels of redox signaling molecules. Nothing that's like, the replenishment with the SIA and Renew 28. But I just want to plug Lee's books. They're fantastic, and there's nothing like them, and they're a gift to all of us.
Aaron,
Well, even that fourth one is a great one to keep track of your progress, to journal what you're doing to see these changes in your life.
That's great.
real quick, Aaron, can you, because when you're talking about the serving amount, I think is the correct term we're supposed to use, right, Lee?
Yeah,
You're muted, Lee.
not dosage. Yeah.
Lee, you're muted.
Again,
There you go.
Should it be a serving or a dose, or does it matter? Dosey-do.
well, I just think that, I was just making a comment about semantics.
Okay.
It's like as long as we understand that when we speak of a dose, that's just kind of a colloquial way of saying an amount. And the amount's
Okay.
going to vary from person to person, and even over time with the same person as to what's going on in their body as to what they might need or require.
Well, and maybe touch on that real quick, either Dr. Kaufman or Dr. Osler. Why do we talk in code talk? Why aren't we naming diseases? Why don't we name, medications and things like that? Then I do have another question for Dr. Kaufman.
We'd be a drug if we were doing that.
And that's not a good thing, right?
Well, it's not a good thing because it'd take another 10 years and none of us would be administering it because it would be by prescription or under physician control at that point, because that's just the way the regulatory rules work. And it would be worse in other countries who have tighter regulatory laws than even the United States does. So we're really glad that it isn't. We're glad that it flipped to the supplement side. This was on a drug side, a track to become a drug, and it flipped to the supplement side. And that's why we can't make the claims, and we can't talk about specific diseases, because when we do, then we start having compliance problems because we're making a medical claim, which we cannot do because this is a supplement by law. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work on all the diseases that we could name, down the list or help them. But my point earlier was this isn't treating the disease, it's treating the cell. And when the cell gets better at doing what it's supposed to do, then it fixes the problem as best it can. And it doesn't obviate, I think we should make this clear, it doesn't obviate or dismiss the need for intervention. For some of us, we've had things, there's water that's already gone underneath the bridge and you can't pull it back upstream. It's those problems are done, those body parts are gone, or those tissues have been destroyed. You can't undo some of those things. And so there may be, a reason why we need intervention or, medical care, but this support side is going to make all of that work better because the cell won't have as steep a heel decline.
Okay, real quick, either Maureen or Dr. Kaufman, when you talk about how much people should take in the beginning, some people may have a reaction. They may have a rebalancing back to normal. Because some people go, ooh, it made my tummy not feel good or whatever.
Right.
Could you explain why that happens and what they should do?
You want to do it, Maureen? I don't mind. I just had somebody going through this a couple of days ago. It basically is that idea that I think you, Maureen, were talking about earlier, that as we age and there's a deficiency of these molecules, these redox signaling molecules that youthen our cells become, the term is senescent. And I love that. That's basically senile. And you think about, if I'm senile, got dementia, and I'm just sitting here and garbage is building up and I don't even notice it. I'm not aware of my environment. I'm not communicating. I'm not being communicated to. And when we replenish these redox molecules, it youthens. I love that term. It youthens our cells. It makes them work like they were younger. And if you've got senescent cells, which we all do, and it's like Lee was talking about, looking at the stadium and all this incipient disease, and all of a sudden you start waking those cells up and they go, holy mackerel, metaphorically, and they start cleaning up the garbage and taking the garbage out. So that is why people experience whatever the quote detox is or whatever. And what I told this lady, she said it wasn't too bad. I think she had a little headache and fatigue, maybe felt like she had the flu, but it wasn't too bad. I said, we'll just keep going, but drink a whole lot more really good quality water, not tap water with chlorine and gosh knows what else.
Yeah.
Like alkaline water or just even a Brita filter, some kind of carbon block filtered or spring water. And it washes, quote, the garbage out. So, you can do that. If it's a really more severe reaction, we tell them to back off a little bit. And sometimes if it's really severe, they'll just have to use the gel for a while and get their cells sort of awake, and then they can graduate up. But that's not real common. And
Okay.
I don't know what you guys experience. I would say it's probably not even 5% of people
Less than
having any
5.
significant detox.
Yeah. Maureen, can you address real quick? And I want to ask Trish one last closing question. Can you address the taste? Because some people sniff it and smell it and taste it and they go, oh my Lord, it's swimming pool water. Can you address that real quick, please?
Sure. Yeah. You know what? And it's funny because when we first got started on it, my husband had undergone treatment with very, very strong drugs. And so he would moan and groan every time he drank it. I mean, he would practically roll on the floor. It was just terrible. I'd be like, put on your big boy pants. I could barely taste it. It tasted a little salty, a little bit like YMCA pool water if you took a gulp of that. But it really wasn't that bad. But for people who are toxic or maybe have, and it kind of depends on your physiology. I've noticed even after taking it for as many years as I have, if I have overindulged or maybe eaten poorly or, something else is going on, it may have a little bit more of a pungent taste. Now, we went to a conference where Alan Noble, I think, was mentioning this, that it's kind of a hard sell, but the more you need it, the worse it tastes, which, my husband felt totally vindicated. Now he drinks it straight down. He'll drink, somebody was talking about, whether or not to keep it in your mouth. And just so you know, they've done studies, the company has, where they have people hold it in their mouth and they will spit the liquid back out and they will see what the content of Redox molecules is. And they have found that if you hold it in your mouth for 20-30 seconds, roll it around so you increase the surface area, you're going to take up about 85% of the molecules. My husband likes to just take one of these pouches and down it. He still gets great results from it, but he would probably do better if he broke it up, if he held it in his mouth for a little bit longer. He would be able to absorb more of the molecules. But yeah, he probably does a couple pouches of these a day. So yeah, the taste will change. And for some people, if you don't like the taste, you can put it in the refrigerator and that might help. Or I'll tell you what, if you get these sports pouches, it's got a one-way valve so you can sip on it throughout the day. Your saliva is not going to go back in and denature it or turn it back to salt water. And you're not smelling it. So the taste is not as pungent.
Yeah, I think that's perfect with a teenager. Maybe you're trying to introduce it to them. Maybe a senior adult that, they're on a bunch where they're on a lot of medication and all those toxins. And so you may not want them to notice it. So you start them off on those pouches. After a period of weeks, they're going to start seeing the balance. And then they won't even notice the taste if they ever do it from pouring it into the cup. So that's why I like the pouches. If you're doing a 5K or, just grab and go on a trip, they're perfect.
One last question for the medical people. If people, Dr. Kaufman, you brought it up earlier, if they're on medication, can this interact, do anything negative to any of the medications? And if anybody wants to answer that, except for Trish.
No, there is no drug, no herb, no interactions with any. These are identical to what we are producing in our cells right now. These are native, human, identical redox cell signaling molecules. So by their very nature, there can't be any reaction, and just incidentally, zero toxicity. But what we do need to tell people, obviously you don't take this at the same time as anything else, because the drug, the food, the whatever will denature these redox molecules back to saline, and you lose the effectiveness. But if they are drinking this, whatever they're using is going to work better. And to the extent that we see this, people who are, we'll just say, measuring their numbers, that when they start euthaning their cells, normalizing cellular function, and they're taking medication to lower numbers, their numbers may run too low, and they may have effects of their numbers going too low. So they need to be monitoring those numbers. And if they start dropping, they need to talk to their doctor about less medication.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, guys, this is awesome. Trish, if you don't mind, I want to have you close. You've been part of this company now for 13 years?
Yeah, a little over. Well, yeah.
Okay, so the company's 14 years old. You're obviously our top income producer. Are we done? Is this rodeo almost over? You're getting ready to go to Asia for 3 weeks, and I'm sure they're excited as all get out to know that you're coming. Is this game almost over?
Well, very few people know about redox signaling molecules, and we're getting more and more validation from all kinds of universities, and so redox, the general acceptance of the whole concept of redox signaling molecules is just going to grow. And, most people aren't getting any younger. So the world needs to know about these molecules. And, I just love what Dr. Maureen said. Well, I love what everyone said, but, Dr. Maureen Hayes and her husband, they're not just medical doctors. They're super specialized medical doctors, both of them, both her husband and herself, with a ton of medical education. And, but they had a need for the product. I believe it was your husband's lungs that were having major issues, right? And so a lot of times you don't approach people through the science, especially if you're a person like me. I'm not a science person. I don't have a degree. I'm not a doctor. But you know what? Everyone needs this technology, even if they have a lot of degrees. And so a lot of times you approach people through a human connection and in a human way, just by caring about them and by offering something that can be of value to them. And some people are open-minded enough to try it, and some people are desperate enough to try it. So anyway, hey, thanks for hosting this every Friday.
Awesome.
Thank
You're all great.
you.
All right, guys.
Y'all are awesome.
Thank you. Come back and join us next Friday. We will have a special guest, and Dr. Maureen, Dr. Osler, Dr. Kaufman, and obviously Trish Schwenkler. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Ann, and thank you so much for joining us, guys. Come back. We will be back next Friday, the Redox 5. Please get back to the one that got you on the call. Share it, go to them. Do not go to Amazon. We do not sell our product legally through Amazon. We never have and we never will. We do it through distributors like us. And number 2, be cautious where you go and do your research. Do it from the one that directed you here. Get it from there. You don't go to Google. Okay. Google Scholar. Yes. Google. No. They do have some good stuff out there, but guys, do your proper research. Do your proper due diligence. So with that, guys, thank you. God bless. And we'll see you back here next Friday.
Great weekend.
Trish, have a safe trip.
Y'all
Thank you.
awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.
Thank
Thanks.
you, everybody. God bless.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.